Without an introduction, I am throwing at you the first tip. Arrive at your Zoom calls 5 minutes early. Do this, please do this, and I will explain why in a moment. That is why I'm not doing an introduction. That's how important this is. Please arrive 5 minutes early. Okay, sorry, that was a bit aggressive. But I'm Michaela, and here are my tips for online learning. Sorry, I'm speaking a little bit low. I don't want people to hear me that are living nearby. But anyway, yes, so my first tip is to arrive to all your Zoom calls at least 5 minutes early. And story time, here's my reasoning. First day of class for me was on Tuesday, and I was really excited because, first day of college, So my first class was Power Identity Resistance at 9:40 in the morning, and I logged on early. I don't remember what time exactly, but it was early. It was 9:37, because usually I only take 30 seconds to get into my Zoom call, so I was like, okay, 3 minutes, that'll be plenty of time. Well, I had some technical difficulties. I couldn't log onto my Zoom, and I was panicking, kind of an understatement. Finally, I got on at 9:44, which was bad enough on its own, 4 minutes late to my first class. But it was over Zoom, and the professor didn't, had a policy in which he doesn't let anyone into the Zoom call after class has started. So long story short, I technically missed my very first class because of technical issues, and I should have arrived earlier to the Zoom. But so basically, always give yourself 5 minutes. It's much better to be one-on-one with the professor in the beginning and have a slightly awkward interaction than to be late. Just a little bit of advice from someone who was very embarrassed and kind of horrified at what happened, to be honest. But it did all work out because I was able to join another section of the class later that day, so I still got to have the introductory class, and now I am all set up with my other Zooms. I've actually been arriving to my Zooms 10 minutes early now, just because that has been burned into my memory, that feeling of realizing, oh my gosh, I am not able to attend my very first class of college. With that being said, with that most important tip being said, I would like to jump into the others. I think it's really important to get dressed for your Zoom calls. So today, I'm wearing a dress and tights, which might be a little bit fancy for Zoom calls, but it helps to keep me focused. It makes me feel like I'm doing important work, even though it is over a computer. And even wearing shoes will help you. So whatever you wear, if you were actually going to school, you should wear that for your Zoom calls. Second, make yourself a schedule. Don't allow yourself to get out of your routines and habits simply because you only have to be on your computer at certain hours of the day. Still follow an eating schedule, still follow your shower schedule. Don't let yourself slide into a slump of having no idea of what you're going to be doing for the rest of the day simply because you have Zoom calls. If they're available, take advantage of the recordings of the classes. So if your teacher or professor records the lectures, you should, if you can, access them and use them to review information. So while it stinks that we can't be learning in person, try, if you can, to exploit these possibilities that we now have that we didn't have before when we were entirely in person. This one's important with screen fatigue, so make sure that you're getting out of your room and make sure you're getting fresh air, because staring at a screen for so many hours is going to make you feel very unproductive, and it's going to harm your thinking abilities. It's just going to make you feel very muddled. So if you can, get out of your room and just, even if you're still in your room and you're just doing a different activity, whether it's drawing or reading, it's really important to just get off the screen. Work at your best times. So if you wake up early and you feel most motivated, that's when you should get a lot of your homework done, and likewise in the evenings, if that's when you work better, you should do it then. Of course, this tip applies to regular school as well as online school, but I think it's more critical now than ever with online learning that we're working at our best times, because it's easier to slack off now than it was before. So make sure you're still utilizing those sorts of methods of having the best motivation you can. Take handwritten notes. It's one of the ways that you can get your eyes off a screen. So while you're even during the lesson, if you're looking down and writing, that's awesome for your eyes, because otherwise you're just literally going to be staring at a screen constantly, especially if you're studying and your notes are all on your laptop. Don't use your bed, because now we have the option available essentially to learn in bed, go to school while in bed. And as tempting as this is, try not to do it. Maybe reserve it for a special treat, because if you get in the habit of doing it, it's going to make it harder for you to sleep, because your body's gonna be confused on which cues you're giving it. And then also, I think it's just easier to work when you establish that workstation, so that when you are at that workstation, you know, okay, it's time to get down to business. One thing I have already discovered is it's very easy to go into your phone while you're on Zoom, because obviously the camera's only on like your top half. But try not to use your phone, just because it is tempting, just like it's tempting to use your bed, but it's only going to harm what you're learning, and it's going to make it harder for you to retain what you've learned. You're going to miss stuff. So I'd really advise not to do that. Keep your camera on if you can. This is for 2 reasons. Obviously, if like you have a home situation or something and it's you can't keep your camera on, that totally makes sense, and it's completely reasonable to keep your camera off. But if you can have your camera on, you should, simply because it'll help to keep you on task, because you know that you're being watched and recorded and other people can see you. And second, because I think it helps the teachers. It's hard for them to teach when they're staring at a bunch of black screens. So if they can see your face, it'll make it easier on them, and it'll just be better for everyone all around. Okay, this doesn't really have to do with online learning exactly, but wear a mask whenever you can, when you're going out, when you're around people, because the more that we all wear masks, the quicker this pandemic will end, and the quicker that the pandemic ends, the sooner we can go back to in-person learning. So that's how this kind of connects back to that. I know it's not a tip for actual learning, but please just wear a mask, and then we won't have to watch videos like this because we'll all be at school. Don't forget to speak up. I know it's really stressful. I struggle with it, especially in larger Zoom meetings, speaking in front of everyone else, because it's slightly different being in front of a computer, knowing your face is right on everyone's screen. But don't be afraid to speak up. Just remember that literally no one is judging you. They're all probably actually bored out of their minds, and they're not paying attention, to be honest. So don't be afraid to speak up in class, and it's going to help you learn because you'll be an active listener. And honestly, just keep in mind, do you judge anyone when they speak up? And if not, then no one's going to judge you. And lastly, make sure that you are on mute. Obviously, turn off mute when you are speaking up in class, but aside from that, keep it on mute, only because the rustling sounds are distracting to others, and also you never know when you might say something, or someone behind you might say something that you don't intend for the whole class to hear, and they do hear. So, I mean, I think that everyone kind of knows this already, but just general advice is to keep your mute on when you can. So that's it for the tips. I'm going to be uploading college vlogs next week or something of my first week of official classes, that is in-person classes, because I've not technically started those yet. So subscribe to my channel if you want to stay tuned for those, and thank you so much for coming, and I hope these tips have helped. Have an awesome week.